Our union story is there to be seen. We've won many victories and we've suffered defeats. But as I turn through the pages and look back through time, there's one single question stands out in my mind. Today we may prosper, today we live free. But if it weren't for the union, where would we be? It's our union that defends our rights. But our union's as strong as our will is to fight. For the union is you and the union is me. So stand up and stand by our union.
The streets of Sydney around the turn of the century. The city was busy, a nation was being built. Workers were hard at it, but many had little protection and were open to exploitation.
I'm taking the towels tonight to wash them at home. In the morning I'll be back to light the fires. Then I'll start up to clean. 1 night off a week, 1 weekend in 3.
We've been here since early, and we're waiting for a ship's cargo to watch. If I'm lucky, I'll get picked out today. If not, nothing to do but off home.
Lonely, long hours, low pay, hard and heavy work. These are the conditions for cleaners and caretakers at the start of this century. But conditions for others in Sydney were different. Wealth was shared unequally. The rich and aristocratic prospered, while the workers rushed to produce. The stories of Sydney workers are like the stories of other workers all over the world. Stories of hard work, of people joining together in unions to gain strength. The Industrial Revolution changed work. Steam technology and repetitive engineering meant factories were built to produce growing amounts of product. Life in the factories was grim. 14 hours a day, harsh rules, poor pay, no protection from illness or injury. Workers organised to improve their lot. The union that was to become one of the biggest and most powerful unions in Australia began when 30 watchmen and cleaners met together in a small room in Trades Hall, Sydney. It was 1910.
The executive met outside room 27 for the first meeting. I was mopping the stairs. I asked them why they did not include caretakers in the union. They replied that caretakers were the bosses. I pointed out there were 3 caretakers in the hall who had nobody to boss, and there must be hundreds in a similar position. I said I'd like to join. At the meeting, the secretary recommended the inclusion of caretakers. I paid my entrance fee and became a member.
The union was named the Watchmen, Caretakers and Cleaners Association, and they found a strong leader in Joe Coote.
Well, this union was different. Most of the unions that had gone before were unions of skilled workers, that's to say, people who had a natural industrial bargaining advantage and who were, or would have been, industrially strong in their own right anyway, even without a union. But this was a union of people who had very little bargaining power. It was a union that was going to level them up and win for them the kind of security, protection and dignity that the other unions had won for their workers earlier.
$1911, and the union went to the industrial courts for their first award.
30 shillings for 72 hours is better. It isn't great, but we're getting there.
As usual, employers resisted.
Caretakers? I give some broken down painter or carpenter a job, and now they want to be a profession. They're in a union. And listen to this, union members are to be employed in preference to other persons.
The union was recruiting members all over the city. The first full-time organiser selected by Joe Coote was James Vance Marshall. He was a hard-working radical.
I remember being thrown out of every big firm in Sydney proper. The employers used every device to prevent union organisation expanding, including physically ejecting me. Police were often called to assist in throwing out union officials from city buildings, which they did with great pleasure.
By the end of 1914, the union was known as the Miscellaneous Workers Union. 1915, and the state branches combined their strengths into a federation, and so they became the Federated Miscellaneous Workers Union of Australia. At that time, the workplace was changing rapidly. The employers started to introduce the ideas of Henry Ford, mass production. The idea was that the managers would do all the thinking and the planning, and the workers would do as they were told. The unions responded with action. In 1917, a strike started in Rail and Tramways Randwick Workshop when the government wanted to introduce mass production practices. Many unions, including the Missos, were involved because every worker would be affected. The strike spread quickly. 100,000 workers, 82 days, £2.5 million in lost wages. The strike was lost, crushed by employers and the government. (1914 to 1918). The First World War raged and workers took up arms. Millions died in horrendous conditions.
Over the top. First wave.
The First World War affected the Australian labour movement very strongly. People believed that all that bloodshed should not be in vain, and that there should be a new world fit for heroes to live in. They wanted an end to that old world that had produced so much oppression, poverty and bloodshed.